Good evening. You're listening to The Hour of the Time. I'm William Cooper. Folks, you're not going to believe in 100 years what came for me in the mail today. But whether you believe it or not, I'm going to let you know exactly what it was right after our lead-in music. Don't go away, folks, because tonight we're going to eat it raw. Intelligence, that is. Quote, "The Constitution of the United States is a marvelous document for self-government by Christian people, but the minute you turn the document into the hands of non-Christian people and atheist people, they can use it to destroy the very foundation of our society." End quote. Reverend Pat Robertson, founder of the Christian Coalition, and that's the first paragraph in a letter I got today, folks, from the American Civil Liberties Union, the ACLU. Well, I got to tell you, the ACLU is right to quote that as something that shouldn't have been said because Pat Robertson ain't really on our side anyway. And an intelligent person would never have made that statement. The Constitution is for all of us. Then there's another paragraph, quote, "There is a religious war going on. We must take back our cities and take back our culture and take back our country," end quote. Patrick J. Buchanan. Well, old Pat Buchanan was right when he made that statement, and the ACLU was wrong to quote it, because I'm going to stick it right down their throats. This letter says, "Dear friend, if these were the sentiments of the leaders from a small religious cult or a single-issue organization on the political fringe, then I might not be writing you this letter. But the Christian Coalition, which does not represent all Christians, though it likes to pretend it does, is in no way a fringe religious movement, simply seeking converts to its faith. Rather, it is a massively funded and extremely dangerous political movement based on bigotry and intolerance. This political movement presents real threats to civil liberties in virtually every community in America, and these threats have escalated at the local level, in communities just like yours, to the point where the coalition is now able to win races, not only for school boards and city councils, but for the governorship of a state as important as Virginia, where it has also been instrumental in winning the Republican senatorial nomination for the likes of Oliver North." And folks, they're right about Ollie North. He's a traitor. He was in the process of shredding the Constitution, trading drugs for guns and selling the drugs in America. You'll see where I'm going with this eventually. Here at the American Civil Liberties Union, we have been watching with growing alarm the sophisticated and largely secret operations of the Christian Coalition. For unlike their predecessor of a decade ago, Reverend Jerry Falwell's flamboyant moral majority, this new right-wing movement, now notice, folks, now they're calling the Christian Coalition the right-wing movement, and now they've declared their true political alliance, which is left-wing socialist. You understand what I'm saying? This new right-wing movement tries carefully to avoid publicity and sneak its people into positions of power and influence. Now, folks, how can you do that when you're running for office? How can you sneak into office in front of the whole state, the voters? Pay attention to the rhetoric here, for it's propaganda, and it's designed to get money out of your pockets. Sneak. It's people in the positions of power and influence. While Pat Robertson's political activities are now being exposed, many Christian Coalition candidates he has sponsored and helped fund still remain invisible. This stealth strategy calls for an invasion at the grassroots. Their goal is to elect pro-family Christians, particularly at the state and local level, where the ultimate outcome of key social issues like the fight to protect freedom of expression against censorship, to keep church and state separate, to prevent discrimination against gay men and lesbians, and to preserve reproductive rights will be determined. You bet your life they will, Mr. ACLU and Ms. ACLU. Notice the politically correct Ms. See, I read a book or two in my life. Their method is to prey upon the fears of millions of Americans willing to believe that sacrificing personal liberty can solve our nation's problems. Are you listening carefully, folks? Their method is to prey upon the fears. What do you think this letter's doing, jerk? You're an expert at preying upon the fears of people who don't have brains enough to see through your bullshit. And he says, that is why I am writing to urge you to join the ACLU today, to give us your moral and financial support in this new battle for civil liberties. And if you do, folks, you will lose your liberty and forget the civil. This country was founded upon the common law, and there are no such thing as civil liberties. They are creator-endowed rights protected by the Constitution. They want your money to help destroy the Constitution. You see, they pretend to be fighting in defense of the Constitution. Do you know what the ACLU's policy is on gun control? Do you know that they have completely changed the wording of the Constitution to create something called separation of church and state that doesn't even exist? The Constitution forbids the state from recognizing an establishment of religion. That's it. That's what the Constitution says. There is nothing about separation of church and state. Period. The state is prohibited from creating a state religion. That is the intent of the article. They go on and on and on here, and as they go, it gets worse and worse and worse. It gets more Marxist-oriented, more radical. Christians become fanatical right-wing terrorists. All through here. The religious right has gained enough power to force the resignation of the school superintendent for making condoms available to teenagers who requested them to prevent AIDS. That's not why they requested them, you dummy. They requested them so that they could jump in the back seat of a Chevy up on Blueberry Hill and get their rocks off, you dummy. You don't give kids permission to indulge in something that they neither have the education to understand or the ability to be responsible for. Yes, we want those people off of our school boards. No, the Bible is not going to become the law of the land. It never was. No. You're not going to lose your freedoms if you're not a Christian. And if any Christian tries to take your freedoms away, I will fight just as hard against them as I am fighting now against you. You see, when the ACLU posts a copy of the Bill of Rights, ladies and gentlemen, they leave out the second article in amendment. Were you aware of that? You know you're contributing money when you contribute to the ACLU to a subversive organization that is bent upon destroying your rights in the document that protects it. They have arbitrarily, of their own accord, pretended that the second article in amendment does not even exist. And they had the audacity to send this letter to me to ask for money. Now listen to this double talk. They say one thing out one side of their mouth and something else entirely different out the other. The strength of the Constitution lies entirely in the determination of each citizen to defend it. Only if every single citizen feels duty-bound to do his share in this defense are the constitutional rights secure. They're quoting Albert Einstein in defense of their request for money. They get money from a lot of people who've never read the Constitution, don't understand what's going on, and believe this heavy heavy propaganda that is trying to make anyone who goes to a Christian church look like some kind of terrorist. It just ain't so, folks. There are Christians who are bad. There are Christians who are crooks. There are Christians who try to force their religion down everybody else's throat, and that's wrong. But most Christians are really good people. Here's another propaganda sheet. America is a stronger nation for the ACLU's uncompromising effort. Baloney. If we are to give the leadership the world requires of us, we must rededicate ourselves to the great principles of our Constitution. Our nation needs the services of organizations who will remain vigilant in the defense of our principles. That's a quote from President John F. Kennedy. He was not talking about the ACLU, but the way they have it written here, right under the first quote that I just read you, it seems as if it is. They quote Chief Justice Earl Warren. Chief Justice Earl Warren, does that tell you something? And Senator Adlai E. Stevenson. And on the back, here's what they have, folks. Not something good about this country. Not something good about the Constitution that they claim they're defending. And they're not. They're really trying to destroy it. On the back of here is everything bad that's ever happened in this nation. 1925, the Scopes case. Tennessee statute making it a crime to teach evolution took effect in March 1925. Well, they shouldn't have done that. You see, in an academic environment, all subjects should be open for discussion, challenge, debate, and learning. The ACLU's taking the Bible out of the school library is just as bad. And that's what they don't tell you, ladies and gentlemen. 1933, the Ulysses case. A federal judge rendered a historic anti-censorship decision which admitted James Joyce's masterpiece, Ulysses, to be sold in the United States after a long legal battle supported by the ACLU, and that's proper. Nothing should be censored in this country. We're supposed to have free speech. You are supposed to be responsible for what your children read and for what they see. If you have a television in your living room, and on that television are terrible acts of violence, sexual degradation, immorality night after night, and you allow your children to sit and watch, it is not the fault of the television or the producers of the shows or the stations. It is the fault of the parents. If you're an adult, you have a hand and you have a mind, and the mind should tell your hand to turn it off. 1942, Japanese internments. During World War II, 112,000 Japanese Americans were taken from their homes on the West Coast and held in inland concentration camps in the United States. The public, the courts, and the government were united in their approval of the camps. The ACLU handled the Korematsu case, the first legal challenge to the constitutionality of the internments. And it was proper. It was wrong to inter those Japanese people. Most of them were United States citizens. It was wrong. But ladies and gentlemen, the sheeple did then just as they did when Waco was burned to the ground, and the ACLU did not say a word, did not participate in their defense, did not come forward to try to prosecute the government who participated or to institute criminal proceedings against the murderers. That's what they don't tell you. You see, for everything they have on here, trying to make Christians or the Constitution or Americans look bad, they are hiding under their desk 20 things that make the ACLU look bad. They're hypocrites, and they're liars, and they're out to destroy this country. There is no doubt about that. 1954, school desegregation. On May 17, 1954, the Supreme Court issued its decision in Brown v. Board of Education, the historic ruling that outlawed public school segregation. And that was right. And that's why John F. Kennedy was killed. And that's why Martin Luther King was killed, murdered. And that's why Robert Kennedy was murdered. You can turn and blame it on the mafia all you want to, ladies and gentlemen, but the answer is right in front of you every single time that you take a little peek at the Washington Monument or the obelisk in Dealey Plaza. 1968-70, end of the war. The public outcry to end the war in Vietnam became turbulent during these years, and the ACLU entered the fray, defending the free speech of anti-war protesters and calling for an end to that illegal conflict. When President Nixon ordered mass arrests during demonstrations in Washington, the ACLU fought for the right of marchers to continue their protests and ultimately won money damages for their illegal arrests, and that was the right thing to do. 1971, the Pentagon Papers case. In ongoing efforts throughout the 1970s, the ACLU fought to eliminate unwarranted secrecy in government. When the Pentagon tried in 1971 to keep a controversial report on Vietnam from being published, the ACLU participated in the lawsuit that resulted in the report's release. Baloney. Daniel Ellsberg still holds a security clearance and works for the United States government, folks. I told you there are no leaks. There's no way that report came out unless they wanted it to come out. So the ACLU claiming credit is wrong. They had nothing to do with it. They were just little actors in the drama. 1987, creationism. The Supreme Court struck down Louisiana's creationism law, ending a 7-year struggle by the ACLU to prevent the imposition by law of religious beliefs in the public schools. This case, which echoed the 1925 Scopes case, serves as an important reminder that no civil liberty battle is ever really over. The battle for liberty will always be fought. Forget about this civil crap. There is no such thing. You're free or you're not. And we should all work for the freedom of all peoples. Civil liberties is a code word for the ultimate loss of freedom. 1988 to 1992, civil liberties under attack. The Supreme Court, led by its conservative appointees, began to dismantle decades of civil rights protections, returned control over abortion to the states, and threatened to rescind the constitutional right to abortion itself, as well as the fundamental right to privacy on which it is based, despite the ACLU's all-out defense in federal and state courts. Sorry, jerkos, that won't wash either. You see, with the states is where it always should have been. The federal government has no authority to tell us what to do in the state of Arizona, period. See, you claim to be defending a document that you don't even understand yourself. And I suggest you go back and read it and learn exactly what it says and what it means before you pretend to be supporting it. This statement shows that you are not defensive in the Constitution. You are not in defense of that document. You are, in fact, subverting it. And the last statement, and this is the killer, 1992 to the present. Will the Bible become America's law book? And that's really where all this is going. I told you a long time ago, ladies and gentlemen, Christianity is scheduled for extinction in the New World Order. Along with the followers of Islam, the Prophet Muhammad, and Orthodox Judaism. And if you're a Jew, you better listen to me, and all you people pointing your finger at the Jews are going to suffer again just like they did in World War II. You can bet money on it and you'll win. Christians will suffer. Anybody will suffer who doesn't give up their religion. But I'll tell you what, some of you deserve these attacks, the way you try to force your religion down everybody else's throat. Why don't you just practice it and leave everybody else alone? And that includes you atheists. Practice your atheism and leave the rest of us alone. Journal, New York Times, Thursday, June 9th, 1994, The North Crusade, by Frank Rich. As Americans fixed their attention last weekend on the heroic military men who saved the world from fascism, a tin soldier was leading a quiet coup back home. At a Richmond convention overflowing with zealots, Oliver North won the Republican nomination for the Senate in Virginia, and in that instant gave the radical Christian right its most ominous victory, yet in its stealthy pursuit of political power nationwide. Well, you can tell that this writer doesn't like Ollie North. He also doesn't know the meaning of words. A zealot is a person who belongs to a particular offshoot of Judaism. And I can guarantee you, Ollie North is not, and neither were the people who were in attendance at that meeting zealots. Down later, the radical forces he represents, his convention victory in Virginia was made possible by the legions of fundamentalists who are working tirelessly, caucus by caucus, state by state, to take control of the GOP, as Richard Burke has reported in the Times. The radical right has captured the party apparatus in 6 states besides Virginia: Texas, Minnesota, Oregon, Iowa, Washington, and South Carolina, and is making major inroads in many others, including New York. Folks, there is no such thing as a radical right. Radical right, in reality, would be somebody who advocates anarchy. And that's not what these people are promoting. There is no radical right. There's no group of people in this country that I've ever seen that promote anarchy. I know that there are some people who believe in that, but they're not organized. They have no power. They're not meeting with Ollie North. You're all wrong. You liberals, you Marxists don't understand. You see, and I call you exactly what you are. I don't have to make up propaganda terms. I don't have to call you radical Marxists. Marxism is radical enough. You just don't understand. It is you who got Ollie North elected. I don't like Ollie North. He's a traitor. He admitted that they were prepared to suspend the Constitution and declare martial law if necessary. He was trading arms for drugs. Why don't you just tell the truth? It has nothing to do with the radical right. It has nothing to do with the Christian coalition. It has something to do with the policies of the Democratic Marxist Party in power now, driving people to leaders like Ollie North because they can't find anybody else. It is you who got Ollie North elected, dummies. And you're going to get a lot more radical people elected. Because I'm telling you right now, the average Joe is tired of this crap, and he's going to look to anybody who can promise him the end of it. And if you're not careful, you're going to get another Hitler in this world. You will force it to happen. People will beg for a Hitler to rescue them from your Marxism. And they don't understand that Nazi means National Socialism. The two end up being the same. It says even without winning elections, the radical right can make life punishing at the state level for women. There is no radical right, folks. There's just a radical Ollie North. Like there's a radical Bobo Gritz. Even without winning elections, the radical right can make life punishing at the state level for women seeking abortions, homosexuals, racial and religious minorities. Folks, society means conforming to the will of the society. Every society has rules. You can't break the rules openly of the society and expect to get away with it. Nobody in this country is going to buy that stuff. You see, you think just because you have a president in the White House that you're the majority. You have never been the majority in this country. Marxism, socialism has always been the minority. Most Americans believe in their heart they're conservative. Most Americans believe they're real Americans, but most Americans, unfortunately, don't know the meaning of that term. And listen down this, and this is absolutely a lie, but this is the old propaganda machine at work. The movement's anti-Semitic rhetoric and the ferocity of its efforts to enforce its exclusionary orthodoxy on local governments and school systems. An outright lie. Outright lie. I follow Ollie North pretty closely, and I've never heard him even utter what could be called close to an anti-Semitic remark, and I don't even like the guy, folks. It just happens to be the truth. Neither has the Christian Coalition, ever in its history. But you see, any time anybody opposes Marxism, in some mysterious manner they become anti-Semitic. Have you ever noticed that? When are you going to quit paying attention? When are you going to stop paying attention to that? When is anti-Semitic going to finally stop influencing all you dummies out there? And then their closing statement, Virginia is only an early skirmish in what promises to be a protracted and ugly holy war. Well, you didn't have a holy war until you started putting Buddhist texts in the school library and taking the Bible out. You asked for it, and you're going to get it. Now, in their material here, I've got to find it. I've got to read this to you because the next thing that I'm going to go to depends upon you understanding what these guys are saying here. And let me see. There's a particular paragraph in here I've got to read to you in their letter because it's important. But first I've got to find it because I lost my place. Anyway, what they talk about is that they're up against this terrible opposition, which is the radical Christian right. And so they say that you have to donate all this money. I can't find it, so I'm going to paraphrase. And if I get it wrong, I apologize in advance, although I don't think I'm going to get it wrong because I understand what they said perfectly well. They said they have to fight this enemy. So they send this sheet, $20, $35, $50, $75, $100, and $250, and then there's another box where you can write in something more than that. And they want you to send it right away because they have to put into place the organizations to fight it. And they don't say what that is, but I'm going to tell you what that is right now. Here's one of them, folks. People for the American Way Activist Network. Listen to this very carefully. They always do this. They make themselves legitimate by pretending to be patriots. People for the American Way Activist Network. Boy, when you hear what these people are up to, you're going to be angry. This smacks of the ADL, and it smacks of the ACLU. It smacks of the Scottish Rite of Freemasonry. It is everything but American. And boy, well, just wait. You'll find out what these people are up to right after this short pause.
It is written that all men are brothers. Prophecy. We come like blood brothers. Word is born. Cause blood is thicker than water. A light. From the misty grounds. From the unknown. The shadows. The deep. The darkness. Triple dark. Grave. Diggers. My blood brothers. I grew up in the violent island of Shaolin. 55-0-6-4-10-4. When Jackpot Watt was hot, I was not a rusty ass child with tears and snots. Acquired the knowledge how to master my thoughts. My skinny frail body couldn't fuck with the sports. 6 feet 2, still whack on the court. So I stalked New York with a black pitchfork. My style date back to 90-watt Cunyon box. Wallaby clocks with no socks. Remember the days before your pants were sag. Puerto Ricans on the block just throwing up tags. I was born with a rusty spoon as a mouthpiece. Life was hard cause the graves was my company. And when my brothers is trouble predicted, to cross the path as I laugh at the victim. The war was short, events was spent average. Watching devils, feeling like a savage. Blood brothers need me cold. In a minute, ghost face and all check it. Risen grim in the undertake. Devils get baked, I sniff your ass like an ape. Torches that scream, building up my steam. Death do us apart, rushes through the bloodstream. Yo, something ain't right, I don't get it. I feel a vibe, blood brothers, are you with it? If I have to choose one or the other, back the fuck up, spook, yo, that's my blood brother.
All in together, blood brothers, rolling together. All in together, blood brothers, rolling together. All in together, blood brothers, rolling together. All in together, blood brothers. Back in the days of Lee's and BB DVDs. I grew up deceived by wicked enemies. My lifespan began to dim in the era where you can't even trust the man in the mirror. Now grave digging niggas receive my trust. Unlike Christ, we walk among the thieves and the sluts. I bring stress like skins on PMS. The streets are bloody mess. There ain't no EMS in sight. My thoughts are to leave the slums. I hustle with beats and drums, not keys and guns. My feet are numb as I walk my dogs. I cut off the floors with the grave digger swords. Life parole, each me of my men is violated. Hookers are neutered and spaded. Snakes are decapitated and castrated. Niggas just lost, your whole org is being raided. Shows today are hectic. Niggas will wreck shit. Live off rounds and jet quick. This piece is getting heated. Bulls are rushed and stampeded. Devils are all defeated by the Blood Brothers.
The Hour of the Time is brought to you by Swiss America Trading. We specialize in non-confiscatable, non-reportable hard assets, which you're going to need sometime in the near future. Now, some people are taking me at my word, and they're beginning to carry coins around in their pocket, gold and silver, and they're using those to purchase articles. And sometimes that's what hooks people. And then they begin to buy gold and silver coins, and then they begin to use them. Nowhere near enough, folks. In fact, a very small minority around this country are doing it, but they're doing it. The other night a man walked in, purchased a membership and some books and the treason documents and all kinds of things, and handed me a gold Krugerrand, 1 ounce. So, with some people, it's working. If everyone were to do this, we'd have our country back in a relatively very short period of time. Because those who create money out of thin air would go broke very quickly. Very, very, very quickly. Not only that, but the law says if you pay for what you buy in real money, then you really own it. And you can really get that allodial patent deed to your land. And you really don't have to pay property tax anymore once you've done that. Why am I saying all this? You guys aren't listening, and you're not going to do it, are you? Now, some of you will, most of you won't. Nope, most of you will just go about your life just like you did yesterday and the day before and the day before that, and that's a shame, but you will. But for those of you who are beginning to see the light, so to speak, call this number. 1-800-289-2646. 1-800-289-2646. Talk to anybody there. They're all good people. They're all honest people. They'll never cheat you, but if you ever think they do, just call me. I'll get Craig Smith on the horn, and I guarantee you it'll be straightened out in a heartbeat. But remember, if you lie about anything to me, I'll dump you in a heartbeat. You see, because they tape everything there. Everything. Just to make sure there's no misunderstandings, and they even tell you they're taping it. And before they send you the coins that you buy, they call you up and tape it again and tell you everything that you agreed to and they agreed to and the buyback policy and everything, and it's all on tape. Just so there's never any misunderstandings. And a couple people have called me and they have lied, trying to steal from Swiss America Trading. They always get caught when those tapes are played back, so I would advise you, if you have a legitimate complaint, call me. I'll go to bat for you instantly. I'll get Craig Smith on the phone, and he's an honest, good man. If anybody did anything, even remotely wrong, it'll be straightened out real quick. 1-800-289-2646. Do it right now, folks. You know how you are. You tend to put things off. 1-800-289-2646. A great weight will come off your shoulders, and you'll feel a lot better, and you'll sleep real good tonight. Just went off in my hand. That song's all about lies, folks, in case you can't pick it out of the background bass there. And I know since we have to put the bass up here to make voices sound good on radio and cut through the static on shortwave, that bass is probably rattling your speakers if you're listening on satellite, I'll bet you. People for the American Way Activist Network. Oh, what a lie. People for the American Way Activist Network. I'm going to read you verbatim what they say. People for the American Way depends on volunteers like you to be our eyes, ears, hands, feet, and voice. Are you getting the message? This is a spy network, folks, and who are they spying on? You. Yeah, they even admit it here at the local level. We count on you to help strengthen our national commitment to pluralism, individuality, freedom of thought, expression, and religion. You hear that? And religion? They just mouth those words, folks. If you don't agree with their religious viewpoint, they're going to destroy you. Listen. Religious freedom. Well, you know what? I wish I could cuss a lot more on this radio, because I'd cuss a blue streak every once in a while. I was in the Navy, and I learned to do that really good. I hate not being able to do it every once in a while, but I know some of you guys out there got virgin ears, and I certainly don't want to infringe. So I won't. A sense of community and tolerance and compassion for others. You hear that? Tolerance. Community, compassion for others. All lies. Religious freedom, lies. Freedom of expression, lies. Freedom of thought, lies. See, what they mean is only if your thought is their thought. If your expression is their expression. If your religion is their religion. If your community is their community. They want you to tolerate them. They don't want to tolerate you. They have no compassion whatsoever for anybody who doesn't believe like they do. It says, we will rely on you for information and will ask you to respond to specific calls for action. You can rely on us for information, advice, and materials that will be helpful to you and your community. You may not be able to do everything on this list, but a small-time commitment in addition to your general membership support will make a meaningful difference. Wait till you hear this. Create a telephone tree. Identify 5 to 10 friends or associates who are willing to be called by you on a moment's notice. Ideally, they would identify another 5 to 10 friends who they call. These contacts will be made to support lobbying and other related advocacy work. Spread the word. Share people for materials with friends, elected officials, members of community and professional organizations, and your religious community. Recruit friends to become people for members and to join the activist network. Beyond individual action, organizing your community. If you are interested in organizing other members of your community into a citizens group willing to challenge intolerance, call your field coordinator at People for the American Way. They're not talking about intolerance, folks. I'm against intolerance. Says people 4 can provide you with advice on creating a local citizens organization along with written materials to share with interested community groups and tips on setting up telephone networks, working with the media, and organizing strategies. People 4 has published several case studies of community responses to attacks on public education and freedom of expression, as well as activist guides that focus on specific issues. They're talking about a teacher who, while the class is doing a test, takes his Bible out of his drawer and begins to read it. These are the things they're talking about, folks. The San Diego model. The San Diego model. A community battles the religious right. A primer on community organizing, becoming to counter the religious right. Some of this is fade. It's been copied many times. Tucson Talks, a search for common ground. You see, it begins to break down. All the rhetoric that I read to you on the first page begins to break down, and what you find here is their target is Christians. Christians. Nobody else. Their target is Christians. How to win a practical guide for defeating the radical right in your community. When they say radical right, they're talking about Christians. They're not talking about me. They're not talking about you. They're talking about Christians. It becomes obvious in here. Everything has a religious view. The Freedom to Learn Action Kit. Guide to responding to school censorship. School Board Kit. How to respond to religious right threats to school boards. Redondo Beach, a stand against censorship. Video documentary, a community successful resistance to school censorship. I'm against censorship too, folks. But when you get down to what they're talking about, it sounds like they're talking about things that we would support. But when you get down to it, it's not. It's not. What they're talking about is giving pornography to 7-year-olds. That's what they're talking about. And if you say no, that's what they call censorship. Watch your newspapers. Write a letter to the editor. Go to public community meetings. Respond to people. Call to action. Field department. Field department. These are the people who whip the crowd into the uproar. This is classic communism tactics. Classic. You can see it everywhere communism has taken over a country. You see these things happen. Now, they are the minority in this country, ladies and gentlemen, whether you know it or not. But because of efforts like that, and because they can organize, and because they put their money where their mouth is, and patriots never put their money where their mouth is, it seems like they're the majority. Plus, they have the support of the media. Because the media is owned by Marxists. Big Brother, warning, sounds again. Critics fear evil in national ID cards. National ID cards are coming. The government has ordered national ID cards to be given to people who work, starting with certain age groups. You will not be able to get a job unless you have their card. Major facelift plan for United States Greenback, Boston Globe, 7/14/94. Let me see, what paper was that one I just read? I hate to quote something without giving you where it came from. That was USA Today, Thursday, July 14th, 1994, folks. Big Brother. Warning sounds again. Major facelift plan for U.S. Greenback. It's all coming true. Everything I wrote in my book years ago is all coming true. Dollars makeover won't come cheap. USA Today, 7/14/94. U.S. to dress up its cash. USA Today, 7/14/94. Update our dull dollars to foil counterfeiters. USA Today, 7/14/94. Don't mess with money. USA Today, 7/14/94. You see, they're doing with this money, they're preparing you, folks. They're getting you ready. They're doing the same thing here that they did in USA Today right after the first of the year, just after New Year's when the entire issue was pro-gun control. Remember that? Right after that, they started pumping in the gun control bills. Remember, USA Today is an indicator, and when the indicator begins to fill its issue with articles, that means what they're talking about is just around the corner. Very close, folks. Boston Herald, 7/14/94, U.S. giving George facelift. Talking about George Washington on the dollar bill. Boston Globe, 7/14/94, Social Security ID upgrade Wade. Boston Herald, 7/14/94, Commission calls for National ID card. Are you connecting with the date, folks? All these different newspapers, same stories, same day, in concert with each other. You think the press is not controlled? National Report, New York Times, Thursday, 7/14/94. Greenbacks to get high-tech makeover, making currency harder to copy. Treasury, new portraits and other changes to fight counterfeiting. New York Times, 6/29/94. Censors become a force on cyberspace frontier. This is important, ladies and gentlemen. Freedom of expression has always been the rule in the fast-growing global web of public and private computer networks known as cyberspace. But even as thousands of Americans each week join the several million who use computer networks to share ideas and chat with others, the companies that control the networks and sometimes individual users are beginning to play the role of censor. Yes, that's true. I used to belong to Prodigy. I quit Prodigy because they censored every single message that I posted. And they were censoring many other people also. I'm still on America Online, but they are also censoring. Now, you don't have to be too brilliant to understand who these people are and why they're censoring. Just look at the logos. What is the logo of Prodigy? What is the logo of America Online? I'm not going to tell you. You go look. And when you look, if you don't understand it, you haven't been listening to this broadcast long enough, and you certainly missed all of the mystery series. Why do you think they want to establish the information superhighway? Why do you think they want to link all these computers and all of these online networks together and establish one information superhighway? It's so that they can control all the information, folks. And once that happens, any other method of transmitting information will become illegal eventually. And anything that they don't like, the minute it's posted, will disappear right into cyberspace. Yes, sir. Censors entering cyberspace. Another story. Also appeared, New York Times. Here's another one. AT&T hopes new video conferencing package catches business's eye. 6/24/94. And that's in, Investors Business Daily. 6/24/94. And this is talking about linking businesses together via video conferencing through AT&T, which will eventually become part of, yep, you guessed it, the information superhighway. And in the Union Switch and Signal, Columbia, South Carolina, keeping railroads on track with automation. Investors Business Daily, 6/24/94. The legacy of American inventor George Westinghouse lives on at Union Switch and Signal, Incorporated. In 1881, Westinghouse founded Union Switch and Signal to manufacture the railroad air brake and automatic signal devices that he created. Today, the Columbia, South Carolina-based company continues to pioneer the evolution of railway signaling and control technologies. In 1992, for example, it began co-developing technology that will allow railroad officials at a central office to determine the exact location, speed, and type of every locomotive and car on their system. Well, what's wrong with that? Nothing, folks, till you put it together with all this other stuff. You see, it all fits into a big puzzle. Business Technology, the New York Times, 6/22/94. Mexico, tracking voters by computer. Yep, you heard it right. New York Times, 6/21/94. United Nations, a working paper for restructuring. They want to restructure the United Nations. Now you're going to find out why. Congressional Record, House, June 9th, 1994. H. 4256. Quote, I quote, Mr. Michael, now the issue is no longer academic. A few weeks ago, President Clinton signed Presidential Decision Directive 25, explicitly embracing the placement of United States forces under foreign operational control. I've been telling you it's coming, and there it is. I now have in my hands an unclassified document, Synopsis PDD-25, which is really the Clinton administration's policy on reforming multilateral peace operations, May 1994. And here it is, folks, the plan to place our military forces directly under United Nations control. It is approximately, I don't know, a whole bunch of pages long. Let me see here. It's 15 pages long. Let me just read you some of the quotes in here. Just some of the things that it says. However, as Commander-in-Chief, the President has the authority to place U.S. forces under the operational control of a foreign commander. Does he? This says he does. Small civilian police cell to manage police missions, plan for the establishment of police and judicial institutions. What's that all about? Detail appropriate numbers of civilian and military personnel to DPKO in New York in advisory or support roles. Detail public affairs specialists to the UN. Public affairs specialists. That's propaganda. That's what you call PSYOPs personnel. Offer to help create and establish a training program. Participate in peacekeeping training efforts and offer the use of United States facilities for training purposes. The United States will agree to have a United Nations commander exercise overall operational control over United Nations or United States forces. Let me read that again so that there's no misunderstanding. Our policy. The United States will agree to have a United Nations commander exercise overall operational control over United States forces. Next page. To place United States forces under the operational control of a foreign commander. Down at the bottom. To place United States forces under the operational control of a United Nations commander. And a couple of pages later, we call this policy shared responsibility. Department of Defense will pay the United Nations assessment. Will also pay the United Nations assessment for all United Nations peace enforcement missions. The administration will seek to fund the assessments for these operations through the establishment of a new account within the Department of Defense established to pay United Nations assessments. The administration will submit legislation to Congress creating a new peacekeeping assessment account for Department of Defense and implementing the shared responsibility concept. On page 14, U.S. funding of UN peacekeeping operations. In the short term, the administration will seek congressional support for funding the USG's projected UN peacekeeping arrears. Down later, seek congressional support to fund in the annual appropriation assessments for clearly anticipated contingencies. Next page, to amend the War Powers Resolution to introduce a consultative mechanism and to eliminate the 60-day withdrawal provisions. This ain't guesswork, folks. The President has created law with the stroke of a pen. We no longer have military forces, but we never did to begin with, ever since the UN Treaty was signed. Are you getting the gist? If you haven't formed your militia units, you better do it. You better do it. You better arm yourselves. You better have at least 2 years' supply of food for your families. you better get ready. I'm telling you right now, there's going to be war in this country. Not because I say it, not because I want it. Ever since I began my mission, my message to the world, I've tried to prevent it. And if we had wakened enough people, we could have done that. But we haven't yet. Listen to this, New York Times, 6/21/94. White House offers first grants to its youth volunteer program. $46 million to pay for 7,000 members of AmeriCorps. AmeriCorps. You know what AmeriCorps is, folks? It's the brown shirts. It's Hitler's old brown shirts come to America. AT&T signs European partner for telecommunications venture. They're linking up the world. The New America, 6/27/94, supplying growing army of barcode users. 6/23/94, Orion Network Systems Incorporated. You know what that is? It's a system of satellites around the world that can be monitoring you on a 24-hour basis. Investors Business Daily, 6/23/94, Sprint unveils 2 new services allowing wireless access to data. Investors Business Daily, 6/23/94, expanding ATM networks, cash at your fingertips. Which they mean, really, is cashless at your fingertips. USA Today, 3/22/94, new venture seeks to cover Earth. 840 satellites will allow instantaneous access from Tibet to Tijuana. What Would George Orwell Say? By Michael J. Miller. July 1994, PC Magazine. It is a column in PC Magazine saying you better watch out. Big Brother, very shortly, will be monitoring everything you do on your computer. Virtual Realities, Crime and Punishment. Raskolnikov Does Mud Time by Tom Dworkowski. August 1994, Omni. Omni is one of the leakers of New World Order information. Omni is New World Order. Recently they had a cover where they showed that the oyster is no longer in deep water. It's now laying in the shallows near the beach, and the oyster is open, and the pearl of great price is within their reach. For within the oyster is the pearl, and the pearl was the world. The world is within their reach. They see it just at the tip of their fingertips, and if you don't wake up, it will be in their hand, and you will become their slave. July 94, Walgreens ad. Walgreens, the drugstore. Child ID kits now available at Walgreens. Now there's an easy way to help alert adults to any medical conditions or allergies your child may have. It's the Child ID kit, and it's your free with the purchase of any prescription. The kit includes 2 medical emergency ID cards with a space for a photo, plus a physical description, fingerprint record card, etc. And I'm holding in my hands Congress of the United States Office of Technology Assessment, the plan for automated record checks of firearms purchasers' issues and options. And you should see what's in it. But we don't have time, folks. Good night. God bless you, and may God save the Republic.